In a moment that has rocked late-night television and left Hollywood reeling, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator himself, was kicked off the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live in what's now being called one of the most explosive on-air confrontations in recent memory. What was supposed to be a simple promo for his latest film turned into a full-blown clash that exposed a darker side of Jimmy Kimmel that many suspected, but had never seen so clearly. What started as a standard celebrity appearance quickly spiraled into a tense and uncomfortable standoff, with viewers and studio insiders watching in disbelief as one of Hollywood's most respected icons was pushed too far. According to multiple sources on set, the tension had been brewing long before the cameras even rolled. Arnold arrived at the studio in good spirits, excited to discuss his latest blockbuster project. Crew members described him as gracious, even shaking hands with lighting techs and cracking jokes during makeup. He was warm, professional, classic Arnold, said one staffer. But things took a turn when Kimmel arrived. Jimmy walked in last minute, clearly annoyed, recalled a production assistant who requested anonymity. He barely acknowledged Arnold and started venting about how the schedule had been reshuffled to fit him in. The atmosphere grew even colder as the show began. From the first moment, it was obvious something was off. Kimmel's introduction lacked the usual energy. Instead of celebrating Arnold's legendary career, he offered a dry, almost perfunctory welcome. Arnold strode onto the stage, flashing that signature smile and giving a wave to roaring applause. But Jimmy? He barely stood to shake his hand. At first, the questions seemed harmless enough, talking about Arnold's movie, the action scenes, the stunts. But soon, Kimmel's tone shifted. His questions began to stray from the film, and instead veered toward more personal territory, topics Arnold had deliberately avoided in interviews for years. Arnold, ever the pro, gently steered the conversation back to the work. "Let's focus on the film," he said. "It took a whole team of people, writers, stuntmen, directors, to bring this to life. They deserved the spotlight." But Kimmel didn't take the hint. He doubled down. "So Arnold," he smirked, "you've had some interesting associations in the past. What do you think about your old pal, who's been making headlines lately?" The crowd grew silent. Arnold's smile faded slightly. "I think we're here tonight to honor the work of hundreds of people," he said firmly. "That's where the focus should be." Kimmel pushed harder. "Come on, Arnold. You can't pretend you weren't close. The audience deserves to know what you really think." The tension in the room was thick. Arnold held his composure, but the steel in his voice was unmistakable. "I respect people's right to privacy, including my own, and some topics are off limits for good reason." Kimmel didn't let up. He jabbed again, this time implying that Arnold was happy to share parts of his life that benefited his image, but clammed up when things got uncomfortable. The line clearly struck a nerve. Arnold leaned forward. The charm disappeared, replaced by calm, unwavering conviction. "I've been doing this for over 40 years, Jimmy. I've always shown up, done the work, and respected the audience. That's why I'm here." That's when Jimmy crossed a line no professional host should ever dare approach. With a smirk and a muttered jab, just loud enough for the microphones to pick up, he sneered. "Someone who peddles fitness empires while lecturing the rest of us about humility," the audience gasped. The air went thick. This wasn't just an awkward moment. It was an attack on Arnold's core values, his decades of work, and his well-known advocacy. The camera briefly caught the show's producer, frantically signaling from offstage, clearly trying to steer Jimmy back towards safer ground, or maybe begging for a commercial break. Arnold's response was calm, but beneath the surface, there was fire. "I respect everyone's right to their own beliefs, Jimmy," he said, his Austrian-accented voice unwavering. "And I expect the same courtesy from a professional host." Those sitting closest could see it. The slight tightening of his jaw, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the armrests of his chair. This was no longer a conversation. It was a test of restraint. But instead of backing down, Jimmy pushed harder. With a dismissive wave, he scoffed. "Oh, come on, Arnold. Spare us the lecture on professionalism. That's just part of the act, right?" During the break that followed, the tension behind the scenes was palpable. Witnesses say Arnold was seen in deep discussion with his publicist, while Kimmel huddled with the executive producer. Whatever was said in those few minutes didn't help. Because when the cameras started rolling again, Things only got worse. Kimmel went straight for the jugular. Let's talk about control issues, Arnold. People say you micromanage everything. Directors, co-stars, even gym equipment suppliers, I bet. Arnold's expression barely changed, but a flicker of irritation passed through his eyes. I'm passionate about every project I take on, he replied. When people come to see an Arnold Schwarzenegger film, they expect a standard. I make sure that standard is met. For them. Kimmel leaned in, dripping sarcasm. Interesting, coming from someone known for leaving a trail of chaos behind every project. The audience stirred, uneasy now. This wasn't entertainment. It felt like a personal vendetta. Arnold stayed composed. I've had the privilege of working with some of the most talented people in this industry. James Cameron, Ivan Reitman, Paul Verhoeven. Every collaboration has taught me something. That's not chaos, that's growth. A smattering of applause broke out from the crowd. Subtle, but enough to be heard. It clearly irritated Jimmy. Oh, sure, he fired back. But let's not pretend your reputation in Hollywood is squeaky clean. People talk? Arnold nodded slightly. Yes, and not everything people say is true. Kimmel pressed. So you're saying all those crew members talking about your temper tantrums are lying? Arnold's trademark smile had completely disappeared now. He leaned forward slightly. There's a difference between demanding excellence and losing control. I hold myself and my team to a high standard, and anyone who's actually worked with me knows the difference. Kimmel muttered under his breath, again just loud enough to be picked up. That's not what I heard. The studio fell into dead silence. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. And just when it seemed things couldn't get more hostile, Jimmy changed tactics again. Let's talk about your last movie, he said, reaching beneath his desk and pulling out a stack of cue cards. The reviews were, well, let's just say they weren't what you're used to. He began reading aloud with a gleam in his eye. A vanity project that proves even action legends have an expiration date. The Terminator should have stayed terminated, mock sympathy laced his voice. Ouch! That one's from the Times. Even Jimmy's most loyal fans in the audience looked uncomfortable. This wasn't just tough questioning. This was mean-spirited. Arnold took a breath. His response was pointed but composed. You know what's interesting, Jimmy? I've been in this business over 4 decades. I've had films praised. I've had films torn apart. What I've never done is mock someone else's work just to get a cheap laugh. That statement lingered. A few people in the audience applauded, more than before, and it clearly hit a nerve. Kimmel rolled his eyes. Oh, right, I forgot. We're all supposed to pretend every movie you make is a masterpiece just because you're Arnold Schwarzenegger. No one's asking for that, Arnold shot back. But I am asking for basic professional courtesy. The same courtesy I've shown you every time I've been here. Professional courtesy. Jimmy's voice rose sharply. Is that what you call it? When your team sends over a 3-page list of forbidden topics before you'll grace us with your presence? The accusation hit hard. And for the first time, Arnold looked genuinely surprised. I've never personally sent any list of demands to your show, Arnold said, brows knitting slightly. My team works with your producers to make sure we deliver an entertaining segment for your audience. That's standard practice. Standard practice? Jimmy scoffed. Nothing about you is standard, Arnold. You and your entourage march in here like you own the place. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is dealing with celebrities who think the world revolves around them? Arnold's composure held, but there was a new edge to his voice. I'm sorry you feel that way. I've always tried to show respect to this show and to your viewers. If there's been a misunderstanding between our teams, I'm happy to address that. Offline. Oh, now you want to take it offline, Jimmy snapped, laughing bitterly. Classic. Always trying to control the narrative. The show's director, just off camera, could be seen urgently signaling Kimmel to wrap up the segment. But the host wasn't having it. Let me tell you something about control, Arnold, Jimmy pressed on, his face flushed. I've been doing this show for years. I've interviewed presidents, world leaders, and yes, a whole bunch of movie stars. And none of them tried to dictate terms the way you and your people do. Arnold's expression hardened. The politician in him was gone now. This was the bodybuilder who had clawed his way up from nothing. I came here tonight to talk about a film that hundreds of dedicated professionals poured their hearts into, he said, his voice steel. If you're not interested in that, then maybe we should end this conversation right now. Jimmy leaned back in his chair, folding his arms smugly. Oh, I'm interested. Like, why you think you can come on my show And expect me to only ask questions your publicist approved. This isn't a press junket, Arnold. This is late-night television. We keep it real here. Keeping it real? Arnold raised an eyebrow. Is that what you call ambushing your guests with topics you know they're not here to discuss? I call it journalism, Kimmel snapped back. Arnold let out a low laugh, but there was no warmth in it. With all due respect, Jimmy, what you're doing right now, it's not journalism. It's not even good entertainment. It's just sad. That one landed. For the first time, Kimmel looked visibly shaken. His smirk faltered, but instead of backing down, he lashed out harder. Oh, you want to talk about sad? He said, voice rising. Let's talk about how your personal life has become a running joke in Hollywood. How people whisper about you behind your back at parties. How your own... That's enough. Arnold's voice cracked through the air like a whip. He stood. For the first time in the interview, genuine anger flashed across his face. Not performative, not showbiz, real. I've respected your show and your audience by coming here tonight, he said, towering above the desk now. I've tolerated your unprofessionalism out of that same respect. But I will not stand here while you attack my family to boost your ratings. You could have heard a pin drop. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. Kimmel blinked, startled by the shift in the room. Then he tried to recover with a weak laugh. Oh, come on, Arnold. You can't expect to come on a comedy show and not take a few punches. That's the game. No, Jimmy, Arnold replied, still standing tall. That's not the game. There's a difference between good-natured jokes and what you just did. You crossed a line, and you know it. The show's executive producer stepped onto the stage, clearly trying to contain the implosion. He leaned in and whispered urgently to Kimmel. But Jimmy brushed him off. Oh, please, he said theatrically, rolling his eyes. The great Arnold Schwarzenegger is too sensitive for a little late-night ribbing. This is exactly what I mean. You Hollywood types live in this bubble where everyone kisses your ass 24/7. Then someone like me shows up, calls it like it is, and suddenly I'm the villain. Several people in the audience began to boo. Not the polite murmurs of disapproval, real, raw disapproval. Jimmy looked out, startled by the response. His face twisted into something halfway between confusion and defiance. That's when the executive producer stepped in again, this time loud enough for everyone to hear. Jimmy, we need to go to commercial, now. Kimmel didn't budge. Number, I'm not finished. Now, Jimmy. The producer made a sharp, cutting motion toward the camera. As the cameras began to pull back, Arnold calmly turned to leave the stage. This seemed to trigger something in Kimmel, who suddenly stood up and blurted out, "Is that what you do when you can't control the situation, Arnold?" Arnold paused, then turned back slowly. I'm not running, Jimmy. I'm choosing to walk away from a conversation that's no longer productive or respectful. There's a difference. His tone was level, but there was steel beneath it. And just for the record, Arnold continued, I've never needed to control conversations. My work speaks for itself. Kimmel laughed sharply. Your work? You mean flexing muscles, blowing things up and saying, I'll be back? That's not acting, Arnold. That's just a retired bodybuilder clinging to relevance. A collective gasp rippled through the studio. Even the band members looked stunned by the sheer venom. Arnold's expression hardened, jaw clenched. But before he could respond, someone from his team rushed onto the stage and whispered something into his ear. Arnold nodded, then turned to Kimmel. I think we're done here. Thank you for having me, Jimmy. I wish I could say it's been a pleasure. As Arnold turned to leave, Kimmel called out behind him. Yeah, walk away. That's what you do best, isn't it? Walk away when things get complicated. Just ask your ex-wives. The producer immediately stepped in between them, waving frantically for the cameras to cut to commercial. But it was too late. Arnold had stopped mid-stride. The room went silent. He turned back toward Kimmel, slowly and deliberately. His voice, though quiet, carried through the studio like thunder waiting to strike. You know, Jimmy, I came here tonight out of respect. For your audience. For the legacy of this show. I've sat on this stage many times over the years, always giving my full effort, always playing along with your little skits, always professional with you and your crew." Arnold took a step forward. Kimmel suddenly looked less smug. "But tonight," Arnold said, his voice growing firmer, "you've shown the world a side of yourself that some of us already knew was there. I've heard stories from other guests, how the charm turns off once the lights go down, how you belittle your staff, throw tantrums when things don't go your way." The murmurs from the audience grew louder. Kimmel's face was visibly pale now. "I ignored those stories," Arnold continued, "because I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. But tonight, Jimmy, tonight you've shown everyone exactly who you are, and trust me, it's not a good look." Kimmel for once had no comeback. The producer finally managed to cut the broadcast to commercial, just as the cameras caught Arnold's dignified exit and Kimmel's humiliated expression. When the show returned, Kimmel sat alone at his desk. His tone was flat, forced. He tried to make a joke, but it landed with a dull thud. The applause was thin, scattered. Backstage, things were tense. According to sources, as Arnold and his team attempted to leave the building, they were stopped by security. "You need to wait here," one guard reportedly told Arnold's publicist. "Jimmy wants to resolve this privately." "There's nothing to resolve," Arnold replied, stepping forward. "We're leaving. Please step aside." The guards held their ground. What followed, according to witnesses, was a tense standoff in a narrow backstage corridor. Despite being shorter than the towering security team, Arnold stood tall, radiating command. "I said we're leaving," he repeated. His voice was calm, but brooked no argument. "Unless you plan to physically restrain us, which I strongly advise against, you will step aside. Now." The head of security looked over at the show's producer, who had followed them out. After a pause, the producer gave a reluctant nod. The guards stepped back. As Arnold and his team neared the exit, Kimmel appeared again. Tie loosened, face flushed. "Arnold, wait! Look, things got heated out there. Let's talk, privately." Arnold turned and looked him dead in the eye. "I think enough has been said." Kimmel's tone softened suddenly. "Come on, man! It's just television. You know how it works. We push buttons, get reactions. The audience loves it." Arnold shook his head firmly. "No, Jimmy, that's where you're wrong. The audience doesn't love watching people humiliated. They don't love mean-spirited attacks disguised as humour. What happened out there tonight wasn't entertainment. It was bullying, plain and simple." Kimmel's face darkened. "Bullying? Are you kidding me? You're Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the most powerful men in Hollywood. Don't act like you're some victim here." Arnold replied evenly, "Power isn't the issue. Respect is. And you showed tonight you don't have any. Not for your guests, not for your audience, and apparently not for yourself." Those words hung heavy in the air as Arnold turned and walked toward the exit, his team following behind. Kimmel stood frozen, mouth slightly open, as if to reply but couldn't find the words. The security team, sensing the shift, stepped aside without protest. As Arnold reached the exit, a young production assistant who had been watching quietly stepped forward. "Mr. Schwarzenegger," she said softly, "I just wanted to thank you for standing up for yourself. Not many people do that here." Arnold paused, his expression softening as he looked at her. "Sometimes you have to draw a line," he said simply, "even when it's difficult." With a nod to his team, he pushed through the doors and disappeared into the night. The next morning, clips of the confrontation flooded social media, generating millions of views within hours. Sherrod Kimmel quickly became the top trending hashtag as viewers dissected every moment of the uncomfortable exchange. Industry insiders, who had stayed silent for years, began sharing their own stories of Kimmel's behind-the-scenes behavior, confirming much of what Arnold had hinted at on air. Network executives called an emergency meeting and, by midday, announced an unscheduled 2-week hiatus for Jimmy Kimmel Live to allow for studio maintenance. Arnold, meanwhile, maintained his professionalism. declining all interview requests and comments on the incident. His publicist released a brief statement. Mr. Schwarzenegger appreciates the support he has received from fans, but considers the matter closed and is focused on his upcoming projects. But the impact was undeniable. Ratings for Kimmel's show plummeted upon its return. Publicists became reluctant to book their A-list clients on his program, and in Hollywood circles, a new phrase entered the lexicon, getting Schwarzeneggered, meaning to maintain dignity in the face of provocation, standing up to bullying with calm authority. As for Kimmel, the mask had slipped. No amount of damage control could fully restore the carefully cultivated image he had built over the years. The public had seen the man behind the persona, and they weren't impressed. In the end, this confrontation was a powerful reminder. Even in an industry built on illusion, authenticity eventually reveals itself. True star power isn't measured by your ability to dominate others, but by the courage to stand up for what's right. What do you think about this explosive confrontation between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jimmy Kimmel? Was Kimmel out of line, or was Arnold overreacting? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more inside scoops on your favorite celebrities. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. We'll see you in the next video.